Everyone. So I got really taken out by the winter in New England and my first round of flu and kind of winter weather seasonal sickness in many, many years. So I wanted to come on now that I'm recuperated and feeling a little better and offer you all a gentle practice for some spinal movement that might be helpful and relevant for anyone that is not feeling that great or just in a place of recovery, maybe coming out of those seasonal icky things that can happen, um, to get us through some movement in the spine. And I'm going to recommend for today's practice to have a block or two, and a blanket can be helpful, or meditation cushion if you prefer. Um, And then we're going to go ahead and begin. So if you need a moment to grab what you need, you can go ahead and pause, and I'll meet you at the mat in just a minute. This will be a short practice today, just enough to get up and moving and get into all of the different six movements of the spine. Um, as Joseph Pilates is very famous for saying, you're only as young as your spine is flexible. And I know for me, coming out of being really kind of bed and housebound for many days, um, this movement in my spine is the first thing that I'm really uh, sort of urged to move into. So this emphasis on maintaining youthfulness and vitality and health and wellness through the movement of our spine. That's our objective today. So grab your stuff, and I'll meet you on the mat in just a moment. And we'll actually start in standing today. So you can gather your equipment, and then I'll meet you at the top of the mat in standing. I know there's quite a bit of sun coming in at this time of day, but hopefully you can all see me. So once you're ready and steady, you can go ahead and stand with your feet about hips width distance apart at the top edge of your mat. And we'll start with some very gentle movement. These are, we'll take a few actions from a series called Dasha Chalana. We won't move through all 10 movements, but a little bit to just get some fluidity in the spine. So let's start with Sarpa, the serpent. You can let your arms hang really nice and heavy and lead with your heart. Come all the way toward like a soft fold. Your knees can be bent, and then allow your head and shoulders to rest down and roll right on back towards standing again with heavy arms. So you can think of it as a sort of standing cat and cow type movement, but very fluid. Think honey or molasses. We're taking the movement. This one's called Sarpa. So the serpent, we're taking this serpent snake-like movement to invite in the softest, most subtle kind of flexions and extensions of the spine. Really good start for anyone that's been, or if you've been seated at a desk all day or all week, or kind of feeling icky and in bed a lot or lounging on the couch a lot. This very subtle, gentle movement in the spine is going to be a really great way to gently get up and moving. So let's take one more of those. And then as you come back towards standing, again, you can make sure your knees are nice and soft. I'll turn this way so you can see what's happening in the upper body on this one. Make sure your knees are nice and soft, elbows and shoulders and wrists are soft. We're going to start to take little hopping, bouncing movements, like a standing but a subtle spinal twist. You might tap the opposite shoulder. The back arm might tap uh, kidney zone as you move from side to side. Optional to bring cervical spine or neck spine into it as you turn your gaze over one shoulder and then the other, and try to find a little bit of a rhythm. So again, we're just starting off really gently before we layer on anything more complex or profound to the practice. So little bitty hops with soft knees. Find your rhythm, find your breath. Go ahead and slow that movement all the way down. As you settle in towards standing Tadasana at center, see if you can catch that rhythm, the pulsation still moving through you. That one's really good for a little bit of motivation for the lymph flow as well, with that little hopping movement. And then on your inhale, take your arms up and overhead. Clasp your left wrist with your right hand. Reach your left fingertips way on up overhead. And then pull down towards your right side, just finding some space. Think all the way from the left hip or even the left pinky toe, right up through the tips of your left fingers. In particular, focusing on creating some creating some space between each and every rib on your left side body. And go ahead and reach back towards center. We'll swap the grip. So left hand finds your right wrist this time. Pull upward toward the sky and then on over towards your left. This time around, the focus is maybe all the way from right little toe or from right hip, all the way up through your right fingertips, particularly focused on creating space between each and every rib. And then go ahead and come all the way back towards center. Release both wrists, release your arms. Okay, so option here to move with me through Agni Sara. We'll take a breath practice to start building a little bit of heat before we kind of come into a few more complex shapes. So if Agni Sara, which is a very heating, a very sympathetic nervous system practice, is not in your practice, what I would encourage you to do is skip the abdominal pumping action that I'll show. And you can do a variation that's just a sun breath. So it's a big, wide breath with arms reaching out wide. You can exhale through your heart center and then let your palms find the tops of your thighs. So if the abdominal pumping is not part of your practice, that's where you'll stop. And then for those skipping that, you can reach up from the ground through heart center and then start that action all over again. So yours is going to look a little different. You can take this one, option A. Or for those joining in with the abdominal pumping to really kind of massage the organs and give a little bit of action for the spine as well, of course, it's going to look like this. We'll inhale all the way up with wide arms, breathe down through heart center, press your palms into your upper thighs, then press your thighs away so that the elbows lengthen. And you'll come all the way down to the very bottom of your breath. So it's an exhale, 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 and then start to pump the abdomen. I'm doing it through talking here, so it's not going to look quite as pronounced, but we'll do maybe 5 or 10, depending on your practice. And then when you feel the urge to inhale arise, go ahead and release and reach all the way back up and through heart center. Your hands can come back together. Okay, so let's take 3 rounds of that, either option A or option B. For those coming down for the abdomen pumping variation, exhale everything out of your lungs. Get your elbows long and strong and begin to pump. Inhale all the way up, both variations, all variations. Breathe to heart center. Round 2. And last round for all variations. All right. Well done. Go ahead and breathe right down heart center and come to bring your hands to the earth or find your blocks. Just a half salutation. Lift it halfway up. So fingertips to blocks or to shins or to the earth. Exhale and fold. And then inhale to rise all the way back. Uttita Tadasana. We'll take that movement several times. As you exhale, breathe right on down through heart center. Hands to the earth or your blocks. It's a halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale to fold. And then right on up with your breath. And one last round, half salutation. And this time, as you breathe your hands down, go ahead and find the earth. And step your feet all the way back for a first downward facing dog. Your feet can land about hips width distance apart. Feel free to kind of pedal it out on this first one and give your head a yes or no shake. And then step your feet out just slightly wider, like a full footprint on either side, wider than your typical down dog. Reach your right hand over towards your left leg. Can be anywhere from your hip to your heel. Let your head hang nice and low. A nice deep twist, rotation. Create some space between your shoulder blades. And then bring both hands back to center. Settle in with wide fingers on the right hand and invite your left hand across midline. So this time coming toward left hand to right leg, either toward your hip or toward your heel. Let your head hang nice and heavy. And then go ahead and land both hands back to the earth. Mindfully let your knees come down to the mat. You might want to cushion, if you wish, on your blanket. Let your navel draw toward the mat and broaden your collarbones as your gaze lifts. A simple cat and cow for a few breaths here. In the next breath or two, start to shift your movement into rotations like barrel rolls, really feeling into side body. Move in the opposite direction if you have not already. Just getting all the movements, looking for side length. Here's some lateral flexion, some flexion and extension, and some rotations. And the movement back in the spine from all sides. Now go ahead and rest your right palm to the middle of your mat as you come toward neutral. Float your left fingertips high. And on your exhale, thread all the way on down until you come to your left shoulder. So lots of variations with thread the needle here. I know everyone's typically got their favorite. So you do you. If you want to reach your right fingertips out and beyond the crown of your head, go for it. Some folks like to come back onto the right tippy toes and find a little balance with it. Others prefer to take right arm around lower back, and you can take any combination of those variations as well. Take another breath with it here. And then if you're not already there, everyone bring both knees back to the earth. Plant your right palm down into the mat once again. You're pressing the earth away to unwind. Left fingertips reach high. Come on back to all 4 points of contact. Your left hand will settle in at center this time. Right fingertips reach high. Exhale to thread all the way under. It's thread the needle, second side. Land on down to right shoulder and right ear. All those same options exist. So whichever variation you did on the first side, go ahead and find it here on the second side. Settle in for a breath or two. And then all variations again, land both knees. Land your left palm to the earth beyond the tip of your nose. Press the earth away. And we're coming out the way we came in. Right fingertips reach high. Go ahead and land all points back on down to the earth. Okay. So we'll start to move through this whole body circular movement, which will give us a little bit more of some gentle flexion and extension. And it's going to look like this. Hover your knees, draw your weight towards your heels, and then invite your heels toward the earth as you come into downward facing dog. That's going to kind of be the second half of our circle. The first half starts here at downward facing dog. You round your back, some flexion, roll forward toward plank, and then knees hover, hips toward your heels, and then heels toward the earth. So some might prefer, as you roll your weight back, some might prefer to land knees down, right? As you complete your roll. If you have the energy and the stamina today, you can keep your knees hovering to start to bring a little bit of core strength, a little bit of balance, a little bit of proprioception into the mix as well. So keep that circular movement going. Another 2 rounds. Big and rounded through the back as you lean your weight forward. And then hover in downward facing dog. Take 3 breaths. And then go ahead and land your knees to the earth. You can either, option A, come to sit back towards your heels or propped up on a block or two, right? Or if it's okay for your knees, you might want to come up toward a tall kneel. Take some variations of Ustrasana, a camel pose, and we're going to start rather gently. So interlace your fingers behind you. And again, that can be from here as well, right? Press your knuckles toward the earth and try to find a lift with your heart. If it feels appropriate, the weight of your head might draw back into space, right? So long as there's no strain, you should be able to breathe fluidly and freely. And be here at a high kneel too. 3, 2, 1. All expressions, bring your hands to your low back for support and lift all the way back toward neutral. Take a whole breath in and a whole breath out. And we'll take on a second round here. So that could mean, if you've been down toward your heels, that could mean coming up to a tall kneel. If you've worked with this interlacing finger variation, perhaps you want to bring hands to your low back. Perhaps you want to keep hands at your heart. So it could be here, right? From a low or high kneel, we're switching up. Take a variation that allows you to sink a little bit deeper into the back bend, but without force, without strain. Find your breath. 3, 2, 1. And all expressions, hands to your low back. Lift on back towards center. Good. And then go ahead and draw your sits bones back towards your heels, all variations. Remember, you can be up on a block for this one. Right? So it could be here or even up on 2 blocks to give your knees and ankles and hips a little bit more space. All right. Reach your right hand out from your right hip. Left fingertips come up and overhead. Spin your gaze up under your left elbow. Just realized I'm mirroring, which I don't normally do on Zoom yoga, but that's okay. You can follow along with me on either side. And then inhale to lift all the way back toward neutral. Go ahead and invite your left hand this time out from your left hip. Right fingertips reach up and overhead. Spin your gaze underneath your right elbow. Anchor down through your right hip. And come all the way on back towards center. Good. Lean your weight forward to find 4 points of contact. Tuck your toes under into a downward facing dog. Just one standing sequence in our mini practice today. Reach your right toes high, and we're going to bend into the knee today and let your right foot get heavy over toward the left long edge of your mat. That's a little bitty back bend, some space into the front of your right hip. And then lift your gaze forward, map out your path. Right foot lands on down between both hands. Stay on the tippy toes of your left foot at the back. So it's an Ashtachandasana. Reach all fingertips high. Sink down into your hips. And we'll start with a twist. So left fingertips reach forward, right fingertips reach back. Big rotation here. See if you can look for length even as you're twisting. And then land your right hand down toward left upper thigh. Left fingertips reach high, adding in a little bit of an extension. All the way back to your twist. Breathe it back toward heart center as you shift your heart and shoulders back over your hips. I'm going to spin so you can see what's happening here a little bit better. Then bring your right index finger and thumb to the right hip pocket. You're going to give a little pull back there. Reach your left fingertips high and lean on over towards your right, getting in some lateral flexion here. Go ahead and come all the way back to center. Good. All fingertips high, Ashtachandrasana. Breathe on down through heart center. Frame your foot. Step your right foot back. There's an opportunity here for vinyasa. There's not many of them today, so if you'd like to take it, perhaps chaturanga. Maybe your back is feeling up to a full extension, upward facing dog. And we'll meet together back at downward facing dog. And then inhale your left toes high. Remember, it's a bent knee, and the left foot falls over toward the right long edge of your mat. So we're breathing into the front of the left hip. And then bring your gaze forward, map out your route. You can help with your hands if you'd like. Left foot steps all the way forward. Stay on the tippy toes of your right foot and reach high. Ashtachandrasana. So this is a great sequence. I'm going to spin this way just for a little bit of a better view of what's going on. It's a great sequence for getting like all the movements of the spine in one standing sequence. So let's start with the twist. Right fingertips reach forward, left fingertips reach back. We're still active in the underside of the right knee at the back. Look for length inside body, even as you're rotating, and left hand finds your right upper thigh, right fingertips reach high. A little bit of an extension. Reach on back to your twist, and then rotate back to center. Bring your hands to your heart. And this time around, it's left hand, index finger, and thumb. Hook into your left hip pocket. Reach your right fingertips high. And then on over toward the left long edge of your mat. Big breaths into the right side ribs. All the way on back to center. Reach all fingertips high. Breathe your hands down through the heart. Frame your left foot at the front. Step it on back. So last opportunity. Remember I said there weren't going to be many. Last opportunity for a vinyasa through chaturanga if you'd like today. Otherwise, a few breaths at child's pose or right back to down dog. Meet you there. And then all expressions, go ahead and land your knees down. Come to a tall seat, either atop blocks or right onto your heels. And it's left hand across midline. Turn your gaze back over your right shoulder. You can rest onto your fingertips there or wrap your right arm around your low back. Everyone breathe it back to center. Take a whole breath in and a whole breath out. And then go ahead and take your right hand across center. Rest your left fingertips behind you, or you can wrap your forearm around your low back. And all the way back to center. Again, a whole breath in and out. And then slide your sits bones down to one side. You can crisscross your ankles here. You'll want a block handy. We'll need it in just a moment. So make sure it's nearby. And then take your arms out wide. At the tippy top, you can interlace your fingers and then press your palms forward and get really rounded in your back. Breathe everything out. Come all the way back onto center. We're going to take that one more time. Inhale all the way up. Interlace your fingers. If you can remember which way you habitually interlace, take the opposite little finger to the front. Press your palms forward and really round your back. And then release. Inhale your arms wide and high. This time, take your arms behind you to interlace. Press knuckles down toward the earth and find a lift of your heart. Release. Take your arms wide and high. Exhale one last time. Fingers behind you, opposite little finger to the top of the pile. Press your knuckles to the earth. And go ahead and release. This time, as you take your arms out wide and high, you can breathe your hands right down to heart center. Okay. So go ahead and have a block within reach. You can sneak your feet out to the front. Take a roll down onto the earth. Feet come in about hips width distance, and you should ideally be able to reach your heels with your hands. Cover your hips. And for today, I'm going to recommend that you come to the lowest setting or the middle setting because of where we're going with this bridge variation, Setu Bandhasana. We want to make sure we're stable on the block, okay? So Setu Bandhasana, the block comes in underneath low back. You're nice and stable there. It's across the widest part of your hips and pelvis, sacrum. And then perhaps taking one leg long if it feels okay in the hip. Perhaps both legs come long. A yin variation, pontoon. A little bit of a passive extension. We won't be here for too long. And then if you have your legs extended, you can walk them in. First one and then the other. Again, important that you're very stable on the low back. That's why we wanted to keep it at the lower settings. Draw your knees in slowly and start to extend your legs with soles of your feet upward toward the sky. Parita Karani, a legs up the wall expression. Certainly, if you're in a space with access to a wall, you could take that more traditional pose. And then for anyone that would like, if it feels safe for you, particularly for neck spine, but also for low back, since some are resting on blocks, especially if it's kind of precarious, be mindful. There's space here for anyone that might like to explore coming back toward halasana or plow pose, trying to incorporate in one last flexion for the spine. Otherwise, you can stay in your inversion. Anyone that came to that flexion, make sure your block is still in its place. Mindfully bring your low back onto the block. Once again, we pass through the inversion. Bend at your knees. Bring the soles of your feet back on down to the earth. Cover your hips just enough to release the block out from underneath you. And then take your arms out, either cactus arms or wide arms to either side. Drop both knees down to your right. So recline twist of your choice. Your knees can be staggered or stacked. Your gaze might stay to the sky or out over your left shoulder. And all variations in your next breath or two. Invite your knees back on up towards center. Take the same variation you chose on the second side. So again, either knees staggered or stacked. Any variation for low body that you like. And then all expressions, go ahead and draw your knees back up towards center before settling down either towards Shavasana or a seated meditation as your landing point. Give your knees a squeeze into your heart, hug knees in, allow your head, neck, and shoulders to hover. And then either roll your way up toward a seat or roll down to one side or release all the way down to the earth. Allow the spine to neutralize for a brief Shavasana. For those coming toward a seat, make sure you are comfortable. That might mean bringing meditation cushion underneath your hips. Ease into your breath. Dr. Joseph Mercola said that the spine is the highway to the nervous system. So keep it flowing and the whole body thrives. It can be easy to forget to get up and move the spine in all of these six directions when we're either stuck seated at a desk all day or when illness has gotten us down. So important to keep our energy flowing and allow the body to thrive through these movements of the spine. And the next breath or two, for those that are down in Shavasana, you can offer in some very gentle movements through fingers and toes. Notice as your breath broadens how very subtle movements are welcomed into the ribs, clavicles. Maybe reach your arms up and back overhead. You can find it stretch into the whole length of your form. And if you're in a seat, maybe some gentle neck rolls, excuse me, or shoulder shrugs, very gently bringing yourself back toward an awakeness and awareness. And then all expressions go ahead and come on back toward a seat where we can close our practice together for the day. If you'd like, you can come to Anjali at the heart or any other mudra or gesture that feels really authentic for you. Thank you all so much for joining in this brief practice for movement in the spine to come back to a little bit of vitality and encourage this flow of vital energy through our system. I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day ahead, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao for now.